Part 2. Martha bought a few cheap glue traps and scattered them around the house, hoping to catch the massive rat. After a few days, all she managed to catch were a couple of tiny field mice. As for the big rat, its IQ was clearly much higher than hers. Every night, it expertly navigated around the glue traps and made a beeline straight for Tom's bed. For 5 days straight, it paid him a visit. Sometimes it bit his face. Sometimes it nibbled on his toes, but mostly it just left droppings on his pillow before scurrying off. Honestly, I was starting to ship the two of them. Every time Tom got bitten, Martha would just rub some more of her expired, scavenged ointment on him. Finally, one afternoon, Tom spiked a massive fever and collapsed right in the middle of his office. After rushing him to the ER and running a battery of tests, the doctors discovered he had contracted a severe strain of rat bite fever and a secondary bacterial infection. If his coworkers hadn't called an ambulance when they did, the infection could have reached his bloodstream and become life-threatening. It was just a little rat bite. How did it get this serious? Hearing the words life-threatening, Martha was absolutely stunned. Tom lay in the hospital bed, his face ashen, looking like he was on death's door. He barely had the energy to keep his eyes open. "Son, I think these doctors are just trying to scam us for money. Why don't we just go home? I'll boil some herbal roots for you. You drink that and you'll be fine." Tom was in a semi-conscious, delirious state. He couldn't even process what she was saying. I stood by the bed, completely silent. The room fell into a dead, heavy quiet. "Tommy, wake up." Seeing he wasn't waking up, Martha shoved his shoulder hard and slapped his cheek. "Let's just go home, okay? Hospitals are a rip-off." Tom, half dead, weakly raised a hand and waved it. "No, not going back. Oh, come on. Do you know how expensive it is to stay here?" "It's just a fever. You're scaring yourself." Martha grabbed his arm, physically trying to drag him out of the bed. I quickly stepped in to stop her. If Tom went back to the house in this state, I would be the one forced to play nursemaid. It was much better to keep him in the hospital. At least there were no rats here. "Martha, you've had a long day. Why don't you go home and rest?" I said soothingly. "Tom isn't in his right mind right now. When he's feeling a bit better, I'll talk some sense into him and bring him home." Martha looked at Tom, who had passed out again, weighed my words, and finally agreed. Once she was gone, I let out a deep breath, sat down in the visitor's chair, and happily started scrolling through TikTok. It took 3 days of heavy IV antibiotics for Tom to finally regain some of his strength. The very first thing he did when his mind cleared was call a professional biohazard cleaning crew. He ordered them to deep clean the house from top to bottom and throw out every single piece of trash Martha had hoarded. To Martha, this was basically a death sentence. She blocked the front door, nearly getting into a physical fistfight with the hazmat crew. But Tom had nearly lost his life this time. He was absolutely determined to sanitize that house, realizing she couldn't stop the cleaners. Martha stormed straight into the hospital. "Are you trying to kill me? I staved those things for months." "Why did you throw them all away?" Martha burst through the hospital room door, wailing at the top of her lungs. I quickly shut the door behind her so she wouldn't disturb the nurse's station. "You have the nerve to ask me that?" Tom roared, matching her volume. "If it weren't for your garbage, would I be in a hospital bed right now? I send you money every single month, but you insist on dumpster diving like there's gold hidden in the trash." Tom was more furious than she was. "I don't gamble. I don't buy expensive clothes. I just like collecting things. You ungrateful brat. If I hadn't pinched pennies, you wouldn't have gone to college." "Enough with the guilt trips," Tom yelled. "I pay your bills, that's my payback. If you want to collect a few useful things, fine. But you turn my house into a literal rat's nest and put me in the I'm drawing the line. If you ever hoard trash in my house again, I am packing your bags and sending you back to your hometown." Seeing that Tom was dead serious and completely unmoved by her tears, Martha finally panicked and shut up. I immediately played the peacemaker. "Martha, don't be upset. Tom is just stressed and in pain. You're his mother, he won't hold a grudge. Why don't you make him some nice home-cooked meals for the next few days to help him recover? He won't stay mad at you." Martha nodded thoughtfully and left the hospital. "But you can't teach an old dog new tricks." The next day, fully geared up in her scavenging clothes. Martha met up with an old man from our neighborhood who was also a compulsive hoarder. They hit the jackpot. Behind a massive high-end restaurant, they found a literal goldmine of discarded food. There were half-eaten steaks, bags of stale bread, and giant plastic bags full of mixed restaurant leftovers. Down. "This is the good stuff," Martha muttered, pulling a half-eaten rotisserie chicken out of a greasy garbage bag. Meanwhile, swarms of flies were aggressively buzzing around the bags. Even through the security camera footage I reviewed later, I could practically smell the rot through the screen. Martha took that dumpster chicken, rinsed it under the tap to wash off the dirt and cigarette ashes, chopped it up, and threw it into a pot with some scavenged vegetables. She cooked up a massive container of chicken stew. Armed with her biohazard Tupperware, she marched into the hospital. "Tommy, are you hungry? Mom brought you some lunch." Martha walked in, beaming with pride. Tom looked pale and didn't say a word. "Honey, look. Your mom made you a home-cooked meal," I chimed in brightly. "Don't be mad at her anymore. Look at this spread. You need to eat to get your strength back." Since Martha had used a heavy amount of spices, the stew actually smelled deceptively normal. Seeing his mother willing to lower her head and serve him, Tom didn't want to keep the Cold War going. He picked up his fork and started eating. Watching him practically inhale the food, Martha looked thrilled. She immediately promised to bring him lunch every single day. I was thrilled too. She was clearly worried Tom wasn't sick enough. The very next night, while lying in his hospital bed, Tom's stomach let out a horrifying, thunderous gurgle. He threw the blankets off and sprinted for the bathroom. In a single night, he ran to the toilet over 20 times. He was practically dehydrating to death. When he stumbled out of the bathroom for the 25th time, his eyes rolled back, and he passed out cold on the linoleum floor. When he lost consciousness, his bowels immediately gave out. A horrific, foul-smelling liquid pooled on the floor, making the entire hospital room smell like an open sewer. I immediately ran into the hallway to scream for the nurses. After hoisting him onto the bed and running tests, the doctors confirmed severe gastroenteritis and acute food poisoning. The rat bite infection had finally been under control. He was supposed to be discharged tomorrow. Now, he was back on an IV drip, vomiting and hallucinating. His corporate office was constantly calling him. He was up for a massive promotion to regional manager. If he stayed in the hospital much longer, that guaranteed promotion was going to vanish. When Martha walked in at noon the next day with another Tupperware container, the fury in Tom's eyes could have burned a hole through the hospital roof. He slapped the container out of her hands, sending the stew splattering across the wall. "What the fuck have you been feeding me?" What? Martha stammered. "It's fresh. I bought it at the market. Fresh food doesn't give you acute food poisoning. You're lying. Tell me the truth." Tom's face was twisted in absolute rage. Martha, terrified by his demonic expression, finally cracked. I just found it in the bins behind the fancy restaurant. But it was clean. I ate some too, and I'm fine." Still trying to shift the blame, she muttered, "Your stomach is just too weak." "You found it in the bins." Tom repeated the words, his voice eerily quiet. "That dumpster is very clean. They only put food in it. Our clean dumpster is still a dumpster." Tom completely lost his mind. He had been eating literal garbage, mixed restaurant slop. God only knew how much spit, bacteria, and rot was mixed into that meat. "Get out!" Tom ripped the IV out of his arm, shoved Martha into the hallway, and screamed, "Get the hell out of my sight. You are going back to your hometown tomorrow. I never want to see you in my house again." Martha was shoved onto a bus back to her rural hometown that very night. To ensure she actually left, Tom dragged his severely dehydrated body to the station to watch her depart. Once the gastroenteritis cleared up, he was finally discharged. The house had been professionally sanitized, but the moment Tom took his shoes off in the hallway, an eye-watering, putrid stench filled the air. I immediately covered my nose. "Honey, go wash your feet, now." Tom knew his feet smelled, so he rushed to the bathroom. "What's going on lately? My feet have never smelled this bad." "Well, maybe it's because you haven't washed those new sneakers your mom gave you." Foot odor seemed like a minor issue, so Tom didn't pay it any mind. He went straight back to work, desperate to secure his promotion. He was competing against two other guys for the regional manager spot. He worked late every single night. After finally landing a major client account, the promotion was practically in the bag. Feeling triumphant, he decided to invite his boss and the upper management team out for a celebratory dinner, knowing his boss was a massive fan of authentic, high-end Japanese cuisine. Tom booked a private room at the most exclusive sushi restaurant in the city. It was the kind of traditional place where you must take your shoes off before stepping onto the tatami mats. Tom and his boss arrived. The moment Tom slid his scavenged sneakers off, it was as if someone had detonated a biological weapon in the tiny enclosed room. The severe fungal infection he had contracted from Martha's dumpster shoes had mutated inside the sweaty, unwashed sneakers. The stench was so vile, so rotting and pungent, that his boss physically recoiled, gagging into his hand. The other executives in the room subtly pulled their collars up over their noses. Nobody said a word, but the silence was deafening. Breathing in the toxic fumes of Tom's rotting feet, the executive couldn't taste a single piece of the $500 sushi. Everyone rushed through the meal, desperate to escape the biohazard zone. And Tom, utterly oblivious, just kept talking about his corporate strategies. A few days later, the regional manager position was given to his rival. In the corporate world, optics and personal presentation are everything. No executive board is going to promote a man to represent their region, then he smells like a walking corpse. When Tom came home, he was devastated, chugging beers on the couch and cursing office politics, looking at his depressed, defeated face. I felt more joy than if I had gotten a promotion myself. If you think losing a job is the climax, just wait until Martha finds her ultimate treasure in the woods. Part 3 is where the Horde finally destroys everything they have left.